are listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wanko and Joe Vitale.
Okay, and we are officially recording.
Hello, and welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. I am Jamie Wanko here with Joseph Vitale. Hello, Mr. Vitale. How are you?
That was very official. Joseph, yes, I'm good. How are you?
You know, Joseph, it's just a Joseph kind of
It
day. It's the kind of feeling that we're having. It's a Joseph day.
It is a Joseph day. It's also like the depths of February, and like February is like,
Stop.
come on, it's so like,
No.
it's like the other night I went out to pick up my children, and it was like 6:00, and the sun had set, but I could still see the sun in the distance. So I'm not going to say any nerdy things right now, but it's coming. Spring is coming soon. I am definitely looking forward to it. Nerds.
Today we were doing we were talking about the Great Wall of China, and it was like, but at what cost? At what cost? And they had to kind of understand, like, what does that mean? At what cost? So we had to talk about, like, does it really just mean money? So it was like, no, it could cost you your patience. It could cost you your time. Is anything else? And someone said love. And I was like, to quote the great J-Lo, my love don't cost a thing.
Oh,
It's like, nobody knew.
Nobody knew it.
Oh, man.
Nobody knew it.
They just didn't. I was like, no J-Lo? No, I guess. It's like, it's your mom's. That's one of your mom's, songs thing as.
There's been a couple different weird references like that in my class. Well, not necessarily like that, but a couple things in my class. Like we were talking today about, we were doing a web quest on the presidency and what it's like being president and the day-to-day operations of what it's like. And they had this one activity where they go and they look at the press briefing room, right? And they look at all of like the summaries of the many executive orders that the president is putting out there. And apparently he just put one out there about the walking back of the mandatory paper straws. That we're not going to allow paper, not that we're not going to allow them, but they're going to change them to plastic, and they're not going to force people to like use paper straws. And I am an environmental person, but I draw the line at the paper straw. So I was telling them about how like I enjoy me a Chick-fil-A peppermint chocolate chip milkshake during the month of December because it's delicious and it makes my heart happy. So I was like, yeah, and like you go there and they give you a paper straw, and it's like, oh, you drink it and the thing like disintegrates.
Yeah, you're like, pip.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the kids goes, oh, you just drink it like out of the glass, and like,
what are you, a monster child?
That's what I said to him. I said, there is no person who drinks a milkshake out of the container without a straw. I don't think I have ever drank a milkshake without a straw, ever. Like maybe the milk,
maybe the last sip.
Yeah, exactly. And then one kid's like, oh yeah, but you could always like pour it into another glass and then like pour it. I'm like, that person is a serial killer and has bodies buried in their basement. What are you talking about? Your pants are on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And they all just started laughing at me. I was like, there's no way. There is no way that anyone in human history would take a milkshake and pour it into another cup and then drink it out of said cup.
Right, and it's supposed to be fast food, so you're supposed to be like on the go, not at home although every one of them every minute has a glass, has some sort of a bottle. So I'm sure they're ready to fill something with something else.
Yeah, I think that
I don't mind a metal straw. I have a very large collection of metal straws at home.
Gotcha.
I don't mind the metal straws. I have like some really thick, really nice plastic straws that are washable, reusable. I don't mind those. But on the go, no, thank you.
And then they were like, oh, you could always just carry your own. No.
Oh, carry your own straw.
I don't want to do that.
That's a big commitment. It is a big commitment. It is. Is that also how in New Jersey we don't have plastic bags? Are we also heavy on the straw situation here as well?
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. It's like there's certain businesses that do it. That have the paper straws, and looking at you, Chick-fil-A, and like it just no.
Is it making a dent? Back to our recent talk about if there's no numbers on it, it's just an opinion. It's like, well, what is that real?
There's a great bit by a comedian. His name is Andrew Santino, and I got to send it to you later because he's like, I don't understand, the math ain't mathin' with like these. Where are all these turtles with like the straws in their nose? And he's like, ocean, big, tide, Tide strong, straw tiny. You're gonna tell me that it is hysterical. And again, I'm an environmental person. I believe in clean energy. I drive a electric hybrid vehicle. You know, it's. But come on, can we
You draw
walk
the
some
line
things
at the
back?
paper straw.
And then
I do know what?
you go to another city or go to another state. Like when we go down to South Carolina, and there's like plastic bags everywhere.
They're like bags and bags and bags and bags and bags and bags and
Yeah.
bags and 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 bags.
And we've talked about this in the past too on a previous podcast. I know, where like it's been like 5 years with the bag ban, and I still forget my bags in the car. I still forget the bags in the car, and you got to go out and you're carrying like everything in
So
all
true.
of your arms.
So true.
It's crazy, and it's like, what are we doing? So
I hope
anyway,
it's working. I hope it's helping.
yeah, I hope that the environment is better.
Anyone else just buy like a giant container in the store? I do that a lot. Like I just find
No,
as I do, I'm like, oh, a laundry basket. I don't need this, and I just fill it with my stuff. I do. I do.
what do you do with the laundry basket?
It's plastic. So I'm helping nothing.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Right? It's like, but I cannot. Sometimes, what else have I bought? Like giant, like the really big trays, like the plastic, the metal
Yeah.
trays that those anything that I think is like long and a little bit deep enough to keep my wares. I have done that as well, especially if I have the bags in my car and I can go back to the car. But sometimes, a one Jason Wonko, number one dedicated listener of the pod. Hey, boy. He often likes to do a sweep of like different kinds of areas, and he often sweeps the car and puts the bags back in the garage. And I'm like, the
Got it.
bags were not there because I forgot them. The bags are there so that I don't have to be at a store without bags, but
Exactly.
so now I just buy something and then it holds all the other items.
Yeah, so we have, like, the bag of bags in the back of the car.
Of course.
But anyway,
Bag
just
of
getting
bags.
back to the whole milkshake thing, I was like, it was a good as the these students are pretty funny, and I get as you could tell, I get rather animated. But I'm like, "Come on." Like, if there's nobody that does that. They have bodies in their basement. They're a serial killer. Like, stop. It is not happening.
Oh
It
my
is not the
gosh.
truth.
I don't really like a shake that would be so thick you'd have like the Wendy's is not for me.
True. I
That's
mean,
just like ice cream who like it wants to be ice cream, but it's
well,
not.
listen, a Frosty is not exactly a milkshake either. You really shouldn't be drinking a Frosty
But
with a
that's what I
straw.
mean. I
Yeah.
know. And then they have like the spoon straws. No.
No,
No.
no.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Make up your mind, people.
Makeup, what are you gonna be? Are you gonna be a milkshake or are you gonna be ice cream? But, like, which one if you're gonna be a cup, go for it. Yeah,
I
I
hear
guess
you.
I'm not into, like, too many of these, like, mixtured items. But anyway, so, interesting stuff. Straw talk.
Yeah, it's funny or like that they didn't get
Riveting.
the J-Lo reference.
They didn't get the
Um,
J.Lo reference. They also the other day it was like, "Oh, are you a middle child? Are you the oldest or the youngest?" And I would never think that they would get the Jan, "Are you a Jan?" reference. The middle
yeah,
children,
pretty
are
much.
you Jan? I mean, that I get it. Like they're, so young and, you're born in 2011?
Yeah,
No. 11, 12, 13. Oh my gosh. If
I know.
you're born in 2013, Jan is a very far, but I feel like for a long time there was this like in between age before like YouTube became like really the only thing that they watch, where like they used to have like Nick at Night or like you had more of like a family television sort of environment where
Yes,
there would be kids who would get more social references. It's kind of like you or I, like I know all the music from when my parents were teenagers in the 1960s. I know every word to every song because in every car ride you had to listen to that music. So I think
exactly.
we've talked about this, right? Like there's not a lot of that. Like everyone's sort of in their own space on their own device, listening to only who I don't know what they're listening to, but I don't know.
Yeah, even
So,
even coming home today, my kids were,
ah,
I
I was
was
so happy to see them. Did you have to drive them home today?
I did, I was waiting around to get them, and then when
Okay.
we were driving home, my son had music on, and then my daughter was, like, watching I was, like, watching something on her phone. I'm like, "Oh, what are you watching?" She's like, "A show." I'm like, "Oh, really? A show? Can I have the name of said show?" Um, yeah, I was like,
She's like, "You wouldn't know it.
anyway, exactly, you would know it, old
You wouldn't know
person.
it."
What up,
You
skibbity
wouldn't like
toilet?
it. Oh my
Skibbity
goodness.
toilet.
I got to see
Um,
those 2 little treasures today, and I was really excited to see both of
yes.
them.
My children, they come to my school, to do, like, a particular project with they're in high school, and they do a particular project with the middle school. It's a DEI initiative that they're working on. And they came in, and I knew they were coming, and, like, they walked past my room, and they waved because my room is right in the front. Like, as soon as you walk in the door, you see, like, the windows, the fishbowl, and I'm right there. So I, like, grabbed them and pulled them in, and my son's like, "No, I'm busy. I'm working." Bah. So I brought him in. I was like, "These are my children. This is Joseph and this is Sophia, and they're here working on something, blah, blah, blah." And then all of a sudden, like, I went and, like, said something to somebody, and I turned around, and my son was gone. Like, he
Gone.
wasn't even there. He was gone. And then I said my daughter out in the hallway, and then, like, I was like, "All right, I'll see you later." And she's like, "Is Miss Wanko here?" Like, that was the first that was the first thing, like, I because I'm their dad, and nobody wants anything to do
I
with
mean,
me.
they see you every day. I get
Yeah.
it.
And
It's
then
a
they wanna see Miss
novelty.
Wanko, and they
Mm.
and my son and his golden locks doesn't let anybody
Ah,
touch his hair except for one Miss Wanko.
there. His
Um,
dimples were dimpling
yeah, he was dimpling it up today, that was for
today when I
sure.
touched the hair.
Yeah,
He was. I was like, "Oh, you're so cute." I
yeah,
went in to, like, kinda creep on them a couple of times they told you, or by they, I mean Sophia, and I went in just to kinda see, like, what was going on, what they were talking about, and then I realized it's so funny. The first time that I went in, like, I just only had eyes for them, and then I, like, kind of went in a second time and looked and realized, like, "Oh, there's other kids in here that I totally know,
yeah.
and they must think, like, she's a jerk," because, like, I just, like, didn't even, like, acknowledge their presence at all. But yeah, so it was fun. It was a fun little adventure to see them
Yeah,
and
it's
just,
always yeah, we don't get to do bring your child to work day, but it was nice for them to be
no,
there and
it was.
yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
I wanna
what are we
what
chatting about? What are
what?
we chatting about today, boss? What are we talking about?
All right. So we are going to talk about a pretty heavy topic, and we've talked about it
Ooh,
before. And yeah, we've talked about this before, but we haven't talked about it it's been a minute, as the kids say.
okay.
And so I want to kind of talk about something that I'm really interested in learning and studying more about, and also something that pretty much at this point would affect everyone that's lucky enough to actually get old, and that is
Oh,
elder care
oh,
and
okay.
the state of elder care here in New Jersey and really across the country. And I'm just so interested in we haven't had an expert, I don't believe, in elder care or like conditions for the elderly in our country. I don't believe, but maybe we can find somebody, and maybe somebody knows somebody that maybe we can talk to a little bit about it. So
Yeah, and
as
and that being said, if you do have anybody to suggest that might be a good guest on our podcast, we have no shame and
right,
would love to slide into people's DMs
that's right.
or look at
Tag us, send us, right? There's so many.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm on like the side of social media right now that is like sort of it's like either they're like they want to tell me like about a good deal at Aldi, or
Oh.
yeah, so it runs a wide gamut, or like hospice care. So there's right, it's like it could just be any, you just never know how you
Does
end up like in certain algorithm. I mean, you know how you end up,
does
but
Aldi have any deals on hospice care? I mean, that's where we might
if anybody could fix it, it would be Aldi. I'm telling you. I mean, really. So,
Yeah, they're gonna
um,
have it right in that one aisle in the center that's
oh
got,
my
like, the
goodness,
yeah,
just
I know.
the
Good stuff.
products of the month. So
Yeah.
yeah, so, we've been on this, nothing short of, like, learning, experience with, my parents, and my mom having, a degenerative illness that, is often, I think, what is difficult in old age is that, oftentimes, when they're not 100% sure what something is or if it can't be fixed, they just kind of give it like, "Oh, it's an old people thing," right? So, we've been in this space, like, with every doctor you can possibly imagine in every, place. I mean, and of course, we've talked about this before, like, we live in the tri-state area. We have some of, if not the best healthcare and access to healthcare in the world, and she has been here, there, and everywhere. And so, the diagnosis has changed, a couple of different times, and she has been, immobile, or completely bedbound, for it's so crazy. Like, I know it in my mind, but to actually, like, say it out loud, it seems surreal to me. But since August of 2023,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. I now
23 or 22? See, like, now I hold on, let me look. So if we count the months, it's been what seems like forever, and it seems like a couple of weeks, right, at the same time. So, yes, it has been since August of 2023.
23. Okay.
Yeah, of 23. So, August to August, 23 to 24, and 24 to 25. So this, like coming up this summer, we'll come up on like the 2-year point. So we're at like a definite 1.5 years, which her original diagnosis at that point in time, they had said she had 6 months to live. And so that was 18 months ago. Um, so it is very interesting to see, like, a person's will to live, or, how much care they have, or what kind of care they have, how receptive they are to that. And so, so there's some ins and outs of that I'm very interested in and follow. Um, you know, but the things that I've noticed and that I've witnessed really tell a very dark tale for the elderly in our country of what exactly is available to them and what is not. So,
Yeah, you're much more unfortunately, much more versed in this subject than I am. My parents have had health issues, but they're not anywhere near the condition that your
yeah, but,
mom
so
is in. But it's more, which is more of a long-term, 24/7, 365, round the clock care.
right, yeah, so she's considered, like, 24-hour, in need of two-person care, because when anything needs to be done, you really need to have two people, although, it's something that I do by myself, and other, caretakers, you learn the tricks of the trade of being able to do it by yourself. So, obviously, the recommendation was two people. We can do it with one, but yeah, so we've learned like the ins and outs. So, like, one of the best things that her town offers is, you can kind of call this like sort of bus situation, and they'll come and they'll pick you up, and they have wheelchair access. So, if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, and that is a really great offering. My parents sort of research things like, you can go get your taxes done for free. You can, there's these little things that you can do, but when it really comes down to like the level of care that's needed for people, it isn't necessarily what one would imagine would be, a great option. So here are some of the things that I've learned, and maybe there are more things out there. I think I'm kind of desperate to sort of understand. So in most of the cases with people who are ill in these types of situations, especially in reference to the elderly, right? You hope that you have family to help you. And obviously, most of us that are in the sandwich generation have young children, young enough that still need us at home to take care of them. So,
Exactly.
and most of us don't live in multi generational homes. So, it's not really a common practice for us to, have our parents move in with us, or for us to have already been living with our parents, like in that type of situation or setup. So, unless you are under the poverty line, you need to sign away every asset and every penny that you have to your children at least 5 years before it is necessary for you to go into some sort of 24/7 home health care situation. Otherwise, they will drain every single cent that you have earned your entire life in order for you to live.
That's also, you could put things in an irrevocable trust, I believe, as well. Correct. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I know I did go through this a few years ago with having some meetings with estate planning and stuff like that to do things like this, that did not
Right.
get accomplished. Um, I think part of my um, I've had some conversations with my parents who've kind of been at odds with what to do with th- um in regards to that. And we have not done those things. So if and when the time were to come tomorrow or 5 years from now, which I don't want to sound morbid. I hope my parents last 5 more years, for their sake and for everyone's sake. But they're in their early 80s. So the clock
Well,
is tick
right.
the clock is
Absolutely.
ticking. I'm not trying to sound morbid here,
No,
but like,
that's just a
you
that's
know,
an absolute fact.
yeah,
Yes,
absolute
right.
fact. So like
Mhm.
the fact that we this should have been done years ago. I had conversations on my own with like, what should we have them do? Should we broach the conversation with having um an estate attorney help us get involved and plan these things? And I found someone through the financial resources that our district provides. Like we have those retirement planning people that come in, and I said, like, hey, do you guys have someone that you would recommend? And they did. And they're actually someone that actually can come into the schools and have those conversations with people. But it's a touchy subject for me to say, like, and here we go with like the parenting of your parents.
Right.
Hey, we should be doing this because it's not. I'm trying to find the way to say this. Like, I don't want to see the things that they've amassed and put together and earned in their lifetime go to paying for them to stay in a long-term care assisted living facility. I'd like those things to be able to be passed along to their family. I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm not trying to like hold on to it.
What about it is greed though? Because
I know I
it's
don't know. I just didn't
not.
want it to
It's not.
sound, yeah.
And
I'd rather
do they understand that?
they
Like,
do.
would they rather have, like, the government take or the state just drain everything they ever worked for?
I don't know, but it's more of a, "Oh, we'll look into that and we'll talk about it and we'll blah blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, well, I had the conversation and
Right.
I sat down and we talked about it and this should have happened years ago
Yeah.
and it didn't." And my father had, as we've talked about, he had a health scare, heart attack and then a stroke while he was in the hospital, which was I don't remember which summer it was. I think it was 23. I think it was the summer
Mhm.
of 23. That happened. And so now we're coming up upon 2 years of the anniversary of that, and still nothing
Yeah.
has changed.
Yeah.
And my mom has had some health issues and had some surgeries and had some things done, and still nothing has changed. It's like, do you have an advance directive? Now we're just talking about basic stuff about like, what do you want your wishes to be if something were to happen to you? And no one knows the answer to those questions.
Hmm.
Which
That's really tricky because I know the answers to all of those questions.
Yeah, and we've talked about this off the podcast. Um, and
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Yes.
I wish I did, but like um I can't force people into making a decision about their assets. All I can do is give them the information and raise awareness, and then they have to make their own decision. Um, so that's the challenging part of me in the relationship, and I am nowhere near into it as deep as you are. Um, and I know that recently, I think it was right before the holidays, you kinda had a major issue that came up, which, by the way, if you don't wanna talk about, I can cut out, with what took place with, like, them not covering you anymore or insurance changing, and I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but it basically caused, like they were like, "We're coming to get the bed," and
So, yeah, so that's part of the story for today. So,
yeah, and I
you know
and I
no,
apologize
I
if
wanna explain it. No,
yeah,
I wanna explain it because, when I tell the story sometimes to people, they give me the face of like, "What? And huh? And how could oh, no, that can't be." And I want everybody to know, like, we are a pretty, like, tight-knit, researched, well-read, educated family, for whatever that's worth at this point in time, right? So, like, we are not misinformed. And so when you tell people things that frighten them, or you tell people things that are the reality of how life goes, and unfortunately, you have to learn the hard way, they can't believe it's true because they don't want it to be true for themselves. And they don't
yeah,
want
yeah,
my
I
friends,
think I
I know
saw
that
that.
my friends don't want it to be true for me. However, I really, really believe, like, they don't want that to be true for them. And so the reality of the situation is like, how can that be? Is usually what people like, how can that be? It's so unfair. And so my, talking and sort of my understanding, and at this point in my life, like, I never really was very interested in the elderly, as a group. Not that I don't like old people or whatever, but I kind of feel like you sort of like I like kids. I'm not sure that you can like pets, the elderly, and children, like, all on the same plane. So if I had to rate them, to me, it's like I'm more of like, I love like the tween teen kind of age. And it's like, yeah, great. Like, thank you, preschool teacher, for loving like 4-year-olds. And like, thank you, high school teacher or college professor. Right. So I think it's just one of those things. Maybe there is a rare unicorn out there that loves all people, all things, all ages, and animals. But yeah, so the idea is that it was just not something that I was necessarily well informed about. I didn't wanna go into the medical field. I don't even like if someone's gonna, like, throw up, in my classroom. I don't really wanna have nurses duty. It's just not, my particular area. I obviously, as a mother, became, like, much more familiar. My kid's having asthma, and my daughter's having some, like, health issues when they were born. So you sort of just learn as you go. Um, but in this situation, it was like, you're going to do this because there's nobody else to do it. And at that point, I think that there's probably a break with some families where they, choose to put the person in a nursing home, which is totally and completely acceptable and absolutely like not a judgment on my part. But it wasn't my decision to make. Therein lied, the decision with my dad, for on behalf of my mother, because that's the person that makes your decisions, right? Like, your life partner makes your decisions. Unless you have already given like some specific directive, like you mentioned earlier, like, do this, don't do this. And honestly, like, talk about like things that should really be written out like explicitly. All of those things, right? I think your partner, if it's not something you want to discuss with them, like, then you need to get to a lawyer and you need to get all of that written out so that that other person doesn't have to guess whether or not that's the thing that you desire, right?
And have you done that with your husband?
Yes.
Okay.
We have had all these conversations, at this point in time, and we've had, like, that kind of thing written out for a very long time, and we've discussed, and of course, I think, like, when you have children, I think most people do discuss, like, who would the children go to and what would happen and what would the case be and, things like
Exactly.
that, but when it comes to, like, extreme medical, situations, I'm not really sure how many people are willing to have, like, they're very difficult decisions. And I do have quite a few friends, honestly, that keep separate finances in their marriages, which is also, I see you like looking up at the
No, we
ceiling.
don't keep the money comes into my account, and then, like, we have a joint account, and then I have, like, the credit union, which I've had, like, forever because 'cause we're
Right.
keeping that open, so, like, it comes to me, and then I give my wife a check, and then,
Mhm.
like, that's where it all goes.
Yeah, but there's
Do I know what happens with that money? No. I mean,
right. No, no, no. I mean, like,
not
there
that
are
I
people
couldn't
who keep
learn.
his money, her money, or her money and her money. They keep it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
no.
s one
Yeah,
person pays, like, the mortgage, and one person pays the heat bill. Like, they kind of have things divided in that way, and I have several friends, and family members that I have heard this discussion, and I do remember, like, as a Catholic, like, you had to go to pre-Cana, to get married in the Catholic Church, and they did, like, a marriage counseling with us, and I remember, some of it being like, "Oh, this is dumb," and other conversations being like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm glad that we brought this up because like, you should know all of those things, before, you kinda enter into this, like, contract, as it were, especially if you're like me and you plan on, like, doing it once." So, yeah, so my dad was able to make those decisions on my mom's behalf, and obviously, like, we're just gonna be like the exterior support people who kind of, say, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna support you in your decisions." However, my mom was on something called palliative care. And palliative care is, they provide some nursing. They kind of do a home visit. They send you, like, if you need a wheelchair or a Hoyer. A Hoyer is the machine, if you're bedbound, that lifts you up and out of your bed and into your wheelchair. And then, of course, you have to pass like a Hoyer training. Anyone that's going to provide care in the home, you have to prove that you know how to use it. So you have to pass like a little test for it. And then also a bed. And then, like, that's it, like, period, like, that's all. And, of course, it gets into, like, Medicare, Medicaid. Obviously, like, when we go back to, like, the draining all of the money that you ever had or earned in your entire life, obviously, they want you to not have Medicare. They want you to go on to Medicaid so that way you have nothing. You have no assets. You have no home. You have no car. You have no money. You have nothing. And now you have to live like, under the standards of whatever it is that they're providing. So my mom was in, acute care, subacute care. If anyone's ever gone through like any kind of rehab program, or any kind of like, your parent broke their hip, or like your dad needed a knee replacement, or your grandma, whatever, you kind of might know some of these terms, right? As of like June of 2022, these all were vocabulary words that I had never and I'm very grateful that I had never had to really participate in before. So cut to like, okay, the 6-month time is up, and now we're going to move to hospice care because the situation is getting worse. Hospice care provides lots of medical uh, items, right? Like diapers and
And
creams and salves.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just because one of my things is that, I'm actually a pretty good poker player, but I do not have a poker place when I am displeased or I am upset, and I'm listening to you, and I don't know how many people watch this on YouTube or see it on the Spotify stream, like, I just had this look of like, "What the fuck are we doing?" Oh, wait, I'm gonna have to cut that out. Like, "What the hell are we doing?" Just because it's so ridiculous to me that we have to get to a point where you're talking about like, "Oh, I didn't know those words, and now I have to learn them all." And I'm like, "Why
Why?
why does this need like, you could make another decision. Your dad could decide, "Hey, we can put mom in a assisted living facility." But you know what? He doesn't wanna do that.
Do you know how
And
much money that
that
costs?
no, I don't even wanna get into that. Like,
But
it's
that's my point.
ridiculous.
You don't have options
It
because
that's
it's
yeah.
either you drain your entire life savings and you sell your home, and you have like your whole entire vision of what your life was going to be is over,
Mhm.
and you have to change everything you ever thought you were going to be or do. Now for some people, that might just be like, "Yeah, okay, oh, I like other people, I'm social, I'm gonna go play shuffleboard, and I'm gonna play cards, and I don't mind, like, eating in a dining room with other people, and, sometimes I can bring a tray to my room, or, oh, we can book this room over here to have, like, a little Christmas party if you want." So, for some people, like, that's okay.
Mm.
But my people, it was like, no, right? I mean, it was like when I tell you that, like, vehemently opposed to the idea of any of that is a no. Also, by the way, fun fact, if you wanna bring in someone to live with you, to help you, it's like, "Oh, just get somebody to live with you." It is upwards of 80 or $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, that's also, a financial issue that comes in that's a big, 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 big thing. So, we get onto hospice care. Hospice care is there were like, really, truly amazing people. They are women, in so many cases. I can't say that I ever came across a single hospice worker that was male. Although because my mom is, female and bedbound, that may have been like like somewhere on a request situation, but they send you a chaplain who does like religious guidance. They send you a social worker who talks to you like, to you and the caregiver about how everybody's doing. They send a nurse twice a week. They send an aide. These women are angels on earth. They send an aide 7 days a week, for 1 hour. And I hate to say like that's it, because now that we got discharged from hospice because, and I say this very tongue in cheek, she wasn't dying fast enough.
Yeah.
So how do they measure? You're not losing enough weight. Do they have a scale? No. How do they weigh you? They measure your upper arm. So is that open to human error? 150%.
Mhm.
You how else do they determine that?
I mean, that's
They
the first place I gain weight is in my upper arm. My
I
upper arm,
mean,
it always,
it's
you know
it's they just take them. "Oh, it was 31, now it's 27. Oh, but I think it's 32. Oh, and it's like, who?" It's not always the same people doing the measuring either.
Mhm.
Um, and how many sores you have. Now, if you are being cared for by my dad, you are like, when I tell you like the amount of wound care and training that he has paid attention to and like the meticulous nature of him like as a human. I mean, let's just say like I remember when I was first teaching and I would come downstairs, I was still living at home and my dad would be like, "Is that what you're wearing? Do you think you should iron that?" I was like, so it's like just who he is. So it's
Mm.
like if he's gonna have a task, it's gonna be to like the umpteenth degree of, and it's not something he wouldn't, anything he would ever expect from someone else is like less than he would even like what's what he's holding himself to, that standard. But like the wound care, so it's like, yeah, there aren't like the wounds aren't growing exponentially because like he's taking such good care of her. So either way, we got discharged, and my mom's medical situation is still. She has a couple of sores. She is immobile, and she is no longer eligible for hospice care, and is back to. She has a nurse once a week and she gets the 1 hour aid twice a week. And so far, in just the last couple of months, I can't tell you that it's been like the twice a week hasn't happened once. It's someone's always sick, someone's not there, someone forgot, someone called out. Like it's just not at all, what it was. So the social worker has never called us back. I just called myself 2 weeks ago to ask a particular question about something. And she just, we've never heard back from her. So, you think about the people who go through these types of plans and programs, even, people who are in assisted living or who are in a nursing home or whatever they're called, who don't have anyone to advocate for them. And it's beyond awful and sad and terrible. Not to mention some of the people who leave the country and go back to other countries or countries that their families have immigrated from over time because you can feasibly take care of the elderly. Um,
Well, yeah,
Cost wise, you can actually do it and
I
not lose your entire life savings.
I remember you talking about this, and then all of a sudden, you had, like, this epiphany about your mom and her health condition, and the fact that, like, she was going through withdrawals of her medication. Like,
Yeah,
that like, we're not even addressing the fact that, like, we
they
treat
missed it. They
we
missed
treat
it.
we treat dogs that are ill
That's right.
with more grace and compassion in some ways.
That's right.
Like,
That's right.
I listen to, I mean, I know, look, there are a lot of facts that I don't have, okay? I am not an expert in this, thankfully, I don't have to be. Um, I'm sure there will eventually become a time where I am, but outside of doing some elder care estate planning and having, another expense where you are paying for someone to make sure that these plans are taking place, or going to live in a assisted living facility. Um, I'm trying to think about, like, we had some discussions with my mom about what she might want, when my dad was ill, like, okay, let's at least broach this subject in the future. Like, if we know what's going to happen, like, she's like, oh yeah, I want to live at a place that blah, blah. I'm like, no, no, no. You don't want to go to like an assisted living facility. You want to go to a place that has like those resources available, but not be like living in that wing of the, I don't remember what it's called, like not be living in that wing of the building. Like you still are independent. You can drive your own car. You can go do your own thing. You don't need round the clock medical care.
I know that they have hybrids of that though.
Yes. Where
Yeah,
like, yeah, well, they have it like on the premises, but you're not paying for it until you transition to that
right.
later. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I wanna go to that, like, right now." I'm like, "You know how much money that is?"
Right.
Like, it is, and no offense to my parents, but they really don't have a grasp on, like, not that they don't have a grasp on, but, like, it's very difficult for them, I think, to understand, like, the housing market and the way things like because when you bought your house for $17,900 and you can now sell it for 600, 700,000, and that's the only place that you've lived in. Like, I've bought and sold 3 houses in
Right.
my lifetime already where I unfortunately have an education that like I try to pass on to them and get them to realize like if you're going to do this, like this is a big expense and a shift in like you're going to have a mortgage again. You're going to have like we're talking those types of conversations where do you want to have a mortgage again at 80?
Right. But how do you move the needle on that? I mean, for me, it took a really long time, to have, to kind of get to the level, and really sort of understand the situation and to kind of know, I wanted to be as informed as possible. I'm sure that there's lots of people who are very happy not to know or not to bear the responsibility of it. I do feel a great sense of relief not having to question the decisions or the, their wishes and what to do and how to do it but at the same time, do I mean, it's like, this is a necessary conversation.
Yeah,
You are
I've
out there
had
and you haven't done it, and it's because, like, for you, like, you've tried and they don't want to do it. So, like, that's it, right? Like,
I mean I
you
know
can't make someone do something they don't wanna do.
yeah, and I mean I the part of me like it was bothering me that we hadn't had this discussion and then like, my dad has a health scare and this was before the things with my mom and he was like doing better, going to the doctor, getting good reports, the stroke thing had cleared up, his heart was doing good. They did all the tests. I'm like, okay, now we need to sit down and have this conversation. It was like, yeah, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And then it was like checking in, like, hey, um, where are we at on that thing? Oh, we just didn't blah blah. I'm like, this needs to go to the top of the goddamn list, okay? Because we constantly say like, oh, I don't want my children to be, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be, I do it. I do that. Okay, well then at this point, I'm gonna bring in like a carnival wheel and spin the wheel, and like that's what we're gonna do. Like I realize how that sounds. It sounds very insensitive. But I'm like, what else? Like I'm gonna have to figure it out. I'm gonna have to wing it. And granted, my brother and I can make a decision together. I think we can, find common ground to make like I think we think very alike in regards to the humanity of the decision that of what you've had to make. But you want to kind of like honor somebody's wishes, don't you? I mean,
$100%.
I want to do what they want.
Right.
Um and at
But
the
I
same
suppose if they're not honest enough to have their wishes known, then they're gonna just say, like, "We trust whatever it is that you do,"
yeah,
which is a very interesting thing, especially, I suppose, because, like, whoever goes first is gonna make the decisions for the other person,
yeah,
so that's kind of how it goes too. I just don't know if people really understand, and we have such a huge majority of the country, the baby boomers are just getting older and older, and, so it's just, like, this huge part of the country that is aging. And it just becomes a more and more common occurrence for people in our age group,
yeah,
with aging parents. And so I think that it is definitely, an area that I am so interested in learning more about and understanding, hearing how other people have dealt with it, hearing, "Oh, did you try this? Oh, did you do that?" And it's like, it's like, why would I know that? Why would I
yeah. And like and
when
let
does
and
that come
then
up?
we talk about balancing everything.
Right.
Um like this is not something that you want to ever have to deal with, but eventually you're going to have to. It's the spotted dancing elephant in the room. You don't want to become an expert, but when it comes time and you have to be, it's like when I'm like hyper focused when, my dad had the heart issue and the stroke issue of like knowing the information, being able to relay it. I was there, this person wasn't, like trying to like take enough care and notes to pass along information to people. But like there also comes a time, if this were to happen right now, the burden's going to be on, and I say the word burden, and I use that in a term just to describe the way that I feel about it. Like I have children that are going through a important time in their lives, being high school juniors, about to be seniors, looking at colleges, wanting to take the next step, jobs, things that they're doing. Like, yeah, all that stuff can move to the wayside, but like, I don't want to miss that either. So I want to be able to like enjoy that time, which I think is something that you've even talked
Yeah,
about. Like,
that's my only goal. You know how, I want you to think about, and this can really go for any of our listeners genuinely. You know, when you have a parent that, like you said, your dad had the stroke or, like your mom had surgery, that week or 2 of, like, you don't know what's gonna go on, or you're waiting for the phone call, or you're, in the middle of the care, and that has been my entire existence for 18 months.
yeah,
It doesn't stop. And I can't explain to people how that feels other than to reference, like, think of a time when you were in limbo and someone was sick and it just goes and goes and
yeah.
goes and goes.
I mean,
But it is
when
very
when
important.
you were at a point when you have a bug out bag in your car, meaning like the bag of like the clothes and the toothbrush and the blah, but in this thing, and like you have all that stuff in your car, and you're like ready at any point, like okay, gotta go. Like that's a
Yeah.
completely different mindset. If at any point,
Yes.
like you were even mentioning the other day, like you were driving to work and you were like, do I need to come down there? Do I need to leave? It's
Yeah.
7:40 and I'm on it
No,
like
I'm ready at any point in time. I have it. My bag never gets unpacked.
exact. That's that's what I
I've
mean.
never heard a bug out. I've never heard that term before, bug
But
out.
it's
I've
like
never
a
heard that.
I go back to to not the same thing, but
Mm.
I think of the episode when Ron Swanson's second Tammy comes back
Oh, and he
and
hides it in the grate.
he's like, I'm going
Yeah,
in the blah 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 for 3 months. I'll be right back. And he like
got it.
sticks something to
Yeah,
the wall and he climbs up and he busts out the thing and he pulls a bag out. That's a bug out bag. Like,
yeah,
I gotta go. I gotta get
yeah.
out of here. And it's got everything packed and it's got everything ready and you're out. Um I guess it's a prepper thing. But
A
but
prepper.
yeah, I mean
Yeah, it's
that
true.
we definitely I think, I know this is a heavy conversation. Went from paper straws to milkshakes, people.
Because that's how
To
life
eldercare.
is. That's
Yeah,
how it
and
goes.
it's
You
literally
can't
how it is.
ever stay. I mean, it really is Liz, my good friend Liz, years ago had given me, she found like this little magnet and I still have it on my refrigerator that, it was something like it was a conversation that we had together about, when things are difficult, what do you do? And it's like you choose happy. And it is something that I say, and it is something I say to my kids, and it is so true. You really don't have any other choice in life. Like there have been many times where I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do anything, but you have to choose joy. Like you have to get up. And it's the same thing. Your kids going to college, like all the experiences, like you really through the most difficult things, like you have to, as best as you can, choose joy. And that is, part of the balance, I think, is that, there are times when you don't want to and you want to stay on the couch and you want to spend a whole weekend in your pajamas. And like, yes, I am all for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, moving
It's all the
forward.
more reason, by the way, and I know like we're friends and we're co-hosts and we're parents and we're all that stuff, but it's all the more it's 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 all more a testament to also how good you are at what you do in the classroom and the amount of effort and time and compassion and care that you give to your students as well. I think like that still comes through and it's very genuine, even when there are times when you could just be like, ugh, I want to phone it in. You don't. And I have a profound amount of respect for that. And I take that as an example of like how we all should be. And we have coworkers and listeners right now that I know that are going through stuff. And that's what's most important is to be there for those people and in that moment. But you'll
That's
also
right.
find that joy when you come back in the classroom and find people that support you just
That's
like
right.
we support each other. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that is why, as always, I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you too, buddy. I mean, I didn't think we were going here with this topic, but yeah, that's where we went. So yeah, we want to remind you that we are the Balancing Act on human content. We also have a fancy new website, www.thebalancingactpod.com. It's got so many things. And if you listen to us on a podcasting platform, well, gosh darn it, we're on all the podcasting
All.
platforms. We're on like everything. We're on MySpace. Yeah, we're going back in time. I'm in your top 8. So yeah, we are, check out our website. You can definitely drop us a line. And, just to back up on one thing, if you do have anybody that a lot of people listen to podcasts,
please.
Anyone
please,
at all that you think
That's
might
right.
be a good guest on our podcast to talk about this, we definitely want to continue this conversation.
Ongoing. This is ongoing. This will be forever and ever for me at this point. I want to know all the things about elder care and how to make things better for people.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll, our whole goal with what we're doing here, as we've talked about, is like we want to help as many people as possible, and giving you a little insight as to what we experience on the daily is part of that. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you the next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Bye.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.